What is up, guys? It's Friday. It's me and my boy Brett again, back for another episode or webisode, we like to call these, of the Tip Touch. We got we got some few topics here to talk about. We were planning to do this yesterday, but I dropped the ball on my end. Forgive me.
They'll
But
never
yeah, here
know.
we are, Friday again. What's up, Brett?
Yeah, hey, what's going on, my man?
Not much, man. Not much. Just here, getting ready to start the weekend. About to text some text the tips on a few things today.
Yeah. Well, so I hit you up with an article,
Yes.
or with a new movie that I was really curious about, and I'm really interested. I'm super glad. It's a movie. I think it's called Richard Jewell,
Okay.
and it's directed by Clint Eastwood, and
Okay.
he's talking about the story of the '96 Summer Olympics bombing that took place in Atlanta.
Okay.
And the cool thing, it was actually kind of a tragic story because like there was this kind of this overweight guy. He was a security guard, and what had happened was he was a security guard for AT&T, and he's going through the area and he notices a green backpack. And he opens the green backpack because it's just sitting there, nobody is around it. He opens it, he sees pipe bombs in there, and he's like, "Oh snap!" And so he's calling 911. They're trying to evacuate as many people as they can. And all of a sudden, I guess 9 minutes after he had made the phone call, the 911 phone call, the real bomber had made a 911 phone call to say, "Hey, there's a bomb there." Bomb explodes, ends up killing one person, um, and and I guess another reporter ended up having a heart attack running away from
Crazy.
the bomb. Yeah, and so instantly, people are like, "Wow, Richard Jewell, he's a hero." Like, we can't tell you how many lives he saved.
Yeah.
But then suddenly, there at the FBI, there was a leak. The FBI all of a sudden started looking at Richard Jewell's profile, and he's like, "Oh, okay, he's a frustrated white male, lives at home with his mom. I think he was like 34 at the time. Uh, in his 30s, living at home with his mom. He's a fake cop, and all of a sudden, he's the hero." Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
FBI starts focusing on him. Someone from the FBI ends up leaking this information to NBC and to media outlets. And basically, before there's any evidence, real hard evidence against him, against Richard Jewell,
Yeah.
everybody in the media is just pouncing on him. Jay
Mm.
Leno was calling him like the Unidoofus, play on the Unabomber. And at this time in the 90s, this was right after Theodore Kaczynski, the Unabomber, had been doing
Mm.
his thing. There was the Murrah building, the P. Murrah building, in Oklahoma City, where Timothy McVeigh and I forget the other guy, Terry Nichols,
Okay.
blew it up. So there was a lot of like these white supremacist, anti-government people out there, and so the FBI saw him and thought that he fit the profile. Well, who the real bomber really was, a white supremacist who later ended up bombing a gay club in another town. So they almost had their guy, but then they just pointed it at Richard Jewell. So basically, the story is talking about this case. So like the FBI sat him down and said, "I need you to say this. I need you to," and basically they're trying to get him to confess to this crime that he did. He was trying to save people from getting hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought that was a really cool thing that Clint Eastwood, he's really pointing it at the FBI. He's pointing the finger at the media, saying, "Look at what you guys are doing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is the damage you guys can cause." So it ended up NBC ended up settling with him because Richard Jewell and his attorney ended up suing a bunch of different media outlets, and a lot of them ended up settling with him. Richard Jewell said that most of the money went to the attorneys. He said his only goal was to clear his name.
Yeah.
But it was just such a shame. It was such a shame that someone, who he just tried to be the hero. That's all. He just tried to save lives, and he was doing what he was trained to do.
Mm.
And just because, some FBI people, they messed up. They messed up big time. And in fact, they messed up to the point where Janet Reno, who was the attorney general at the time, came out and said, "This is a mess up on the FBI's part." She apologized, and that's it. Hopefully it was a lesson learned. But we're seeing things all the time where the FBI and the CIA, there's just always all these leaks. And so it was clear that they didn't learn their lesson. So I think this is really cool that that Clint Eastwood, he's showing the media and the top law enforcement, hey, you guys are really destroying lives out there.
Yeah.
And I think that we as people need to realize that. We need to realize that you can't trust everything the media is saying. You can't trust everything the law enforcement agencies are telling you. You got to think for yourself. You got to take this stuff with a grain of salt. You've got to proceed with caution.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's there's always two tails to each side, and you're always going to just get one perspective, and people run with it. You know what I'm saying? Instead of really diving into it and kind of dissecting it to where you're figuring out all the facts and you're really getting down to the truth. So yeah, actually, as I think I've mentioned to you earlier that I saw the Joker last night, by the way. So but besides that, there was actually a trailer of this movie, and in the movie they had those scenes where they were trying to get him to confess and pretty much have him say, like, oh, there's a bomb at such and such place. So they were trying to really kind of get him to really confess and make it seem like he really was the person that did it when he really wasn't the one. And he was like you said, he was trying to clear up his name. They definitely had a bunch of people convinced that he was actually the person responsible for that. It's an interesting story. I'll tell you that. It is a really interesting story. I dove into it a little bit about it, but just to kind of like what you were saying, that you really can't just believe one side of things. You really kind of got to go into yourself and really like look at this from point A to point B to point, so on and so forth. So it's definitely an interesting story, and it's one of those movies that I would be willing to watch too, because it's definitely based on a true story. So it's definitely
if the FBI can do that to Richard Jewell, they can do it to you. They can do it to me. Yeah. And and another thing that this kind of brings up is I think it was right now we have in politics. I think it was Chuck Schumer who was telling President Trump, don't mess with law enforcement because they will come after you. And right now, I just find it very, very fascinating that all of a sudden this whistleblower is a CIA guy. And and CIA, that's one of those organizations, they don't report to anybody but themselves. And I think that really we've seen these guys go rogue on a number of times. I think that really it's time that they have to be able to answer to somebody, because as we've seen with Edward Snowden, the NSA had been collecting all of our data, and here he is, he's still hiding to this day.
Yeah.
And it's because, the people that are supposed to be protecting us are actually using they're collecting our data without us knowing. We're at a time where they can't be trusted. They cannot be trusted. I don't trust a lot of those people. I'm very skeptical with politicians. I'm skeptical when it comes to law enforcement like this, and I'm very skeptical when it comes to mainstream media. So this is definitely a movie I want to see, and I will be looking at it through this lens. And I'm also curious to see what other people and it comes out on December 13th of this year.
Okay, cool.
So so I'm very curious. I'm going to be pinging you on that, and also anybody else who sees that movie, leave your comments and leave your thoughts. Am I too much of a conspiracy theorist? Do I need to get my tinfoil hat out? I think at times maybe, but I think we're also living in a time where we're seeing all these conspiracies that were supposed to be just crazy and left field and untrue. And then all of a sudden you're even, the MLK, Martin Luther King, even they've come out, the FBI or there was some report that said, points, all of the fingers are pointing to the FBI. We are pretty confident to say that the FBI had a lot to do with his murder, his assassination. So that's what I'm talking about. They're far too rogue. Once they start pinging off their own people, and who knows, could they have gotten JFK? Does that mean that they can get Trump if they want?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. I'm very skeptical. I'm all for accountability on all levels.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Yeah.
And I think in a weird way, Clint Eastwood is doing that.
Oh yeah. No, he's actually directed a couple of movies too in the past. The one that I saw that I was pretty hardcore. I don't know if you heard of the movie Gran Torino. He was in that too.
Get off my lawn.
Yeah. He's savage, man. He's a good actor, man. I like Clint Eastwood. He's hardcore. But yeah, most definitely, I'll definitely try to peep that. If I'll try to catch it in theaters. If not, I'll definitely catch it when it comes out in DVD or whatever. But it's definitely something that I would want to watch just to really kind of go at it and get a initial review on it, what we think about it. I'm pretty sure he won't disappoint with that. So moving into if you don't mind me just changing the subject on what we were talking about. So Tom Holland, you know who he is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the current Spider-Man that we have right now. I think it's awesome from a fan standpoint of view. Here we have an actor who pretty much, obviously this goes into detail with what was going on with Disney and Sony not being able to negotiate a new deal or new terms for Spider-Man being in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and everybody thought this was a case closed. It's done. We're going our own separate ways, right?
Yeah.
But apparently, if word hasn't got out, and I'm sure people already know about this, but I think it's just pretty cool to talk about, just because in the realm of, he was speaking on the terms of us as the fans, as the people that go watch these movies, as the people that really do have a strong, the Spider-Man has a strong impact on their life somehow, whether it be just comics or, growing up watching the cartoon growing up.
Yeah.
So the CEO of Sony had said that, he was pretty much came to us and really expressed how he felt about the character, him, being the lead role in this, but at the same time seeing the impact that it's made on a bunch of people, that we should go back to the drawing board and really talk to Disney and see if we can come up with an agreement to proceed this forward. And that's how we came about with the whole now it's a 3-picture deal, so it's 2 standalone Spider-Man movies with an appearance of him being in another movie. So I thought it was pretty cool of him to do. I applaud you, Tom Holland. That's so cool that you're really speaking in the terms of the fans, of the consumers, that you really want to do this because of us. And I think that's awesome. It's rare that you hear about stuff like that, I think, because I think most actors are in that mindset where, well, I'm getting paid to do this role, so it's kind of where my boss tells me I'm gonna go do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's just how I think. I don't know what goes on behind closed doors, but I just thought it was awesome of Tom to do that. And like I said, shout outs to him on that. I can't wait for those movies to come out. But it's just really cool to, I wanted to talk a little bit about that, and just, how it's definitely, he definitely really spoke volumes doing that just by itself. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Is it with him doing that? Was there different avenues he could have went, or like what was the significance for him remaining with this?
So I think just because
loyalty,
after they casted the new role, like before, we had I think it's, I don't want to, people are gonna correct me because I think it's, his last name's Garfield. He's the last guy that played the last Spider-Man, right? After that, I think it was the whole Spider-Man idea of making a new movie kind of went dead after that. But then along the ways, they recasted a new role or a new actor for this role, and that's where Tom Holland came out. And I feel like maybe because he kind of got into, he went into this role with the new cast, he built that relationship to where, he wanted to see this thing go as far as it could. And he just felt like, it's wrong for this mega company to just yank the cord on it and just kind of like really not give it a true or like a real ending to him being in that specific universe, because it's kind of confusing. I feel like people maybe ask themselves, why are there so many universes, or why are there so many different avenues these movies go? But it comes down to contracts and just who owns what, and that's really kind of where everything was so split up. Even me, like at first, I did not understand any of this, to where Fox owns these characters, Sony owns these characters, and Disney owns these characters. It's
Yeah,
just everywhere, right?
that is confusing.
And it really just boils down to just contracts on who owns what, or uh, just who owns the right to what. So with him, I think it's just he was put in that position to where it sucks. It's like being yanked away from your team and you get traded off somewhere else. Obviously, these teammates build relationships with one another. I know for a fact maybe he just felt like, man, this is kind of like I feel like I could potentially do something about it, or at least speak my truth about it. And he probably just expressed himself to the Sony CEO and told him like, look, man, like we should really go back and negotiate with these guys, because we're really impacting a bunch of people. Like,
Yeah.
and it Endgame, the last movie, broke all the records. It's probably the highest grossing paid movie ever released. So
Wow.
it's like numbers speak for themselves, man. So
Yeah.
like I said again, I applaud you, Tom. That's dope. I'm happy. I'm sure people all over the world are super happy about that. Um, but yeah, this is kind of what I wanted to bring up, talk a little bit about that. But also, along with that being said, we've talked about the movie Blade, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you've seen
Wesley
it.
Snipes. Oh, dude, that's the movie I got a crush on Ryan Reynolds. Remember his rock solid abs? I was like, oh god, I want that.
That was number three. That was not the first one though.
Mm, oh, okay.
Yeah, that was number three.
That was number 3. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So
Whatever.
it's still Blade though. It's still
That's
Blade.
all
You're
I
right. You're
remembered.
right. You're right. No, no. So it came out in 1998. I was, man, I'm bad at math. I was like around 13, 14 years old. So I've told this. I don't think I've told this story. I don't think I've ever told you the story. So we would rarely go to the movies, right? My dad, he's a big action kung fu type guy. He likes to watch those type of movies.
Yeah.
So I vaguely remember us. He told us about like he told us that we were gonna go watch a movie. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And I didn't know too much about it because back in that time, like you'd see commercials here and there, but it was just kind of like you would see it if you were watching like your favorite show or something, right?
Yeah.
So we went, and I went with an open mind, like, okay, we're gonna watch a movie, whatever. Dude, when I first saw the movie, mind blown. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, I was 13, 14 years old. There was a lot of like bloody scenes and just a lot of like cutting people up, and it was just like I was like, whoa, this movie is so sick. And it what's crazy though is that I look back at it now, and to be real about it, that was actually the first Marvel movie like that ever I think had come out, and it was the first like African American actor that portrayed a main role, like instead of like what Black Panther was now.
Yeah.
Actually, Wesley Snipes did that back in that time in
Right.
1998, and till this day, dude, it's such a sick movie to where it. I'm like, it's like saying Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man. Well, Wesley Snipes is Blade. That's how
Yeah,
I see it.
absolutely.
So he killed that role. So with that being said, so fast forwarding it to now, they're actually going to do a remake of it. Marshall Ali is going to
Wow.
play Blade, and everybody was kind of like at first, I don't know if he can pull it off. Wesley Snipes is always going to be Blade, yada yada yada. But
Who is
here's
he?
Marshall Ali. I don't know, man.
What
I hope
movies
I
has
say
he
these
been
names
in?
right. He's an actor. He's been in a couple of shows, a couple of other movies. Um, he was in the movie, a well-known movie that I know I've heard of him a lot being really good at was a movie called Moonlight, I think.
Okay. I don't know.
Yeah, but he's a really good actor. He's a really good
Cool.
actor.
Cool.
But anyway, so linking that to what's going on now, right? So Blade 1998. Well, there's a name out there that I want to put out. Morbius. Morbius was actually supposed to be a villain that was supposed to come out in Blade in 1998.
Mm.
There was supposed to be a sequel where he was supposed to come out and be the main villain, and there was supposed to be an alternate ending. If people do not know, I feel people sleep on this, and I'm gonna say it right now again. There was an alternate ending in 1998's Blade where Morbius was supposed to be the next villain in the next movie, but they scrapped it
Wow.
because I think the director they told him, I don't know if he didn't want to come back for it or he just said, I'm good. I'm gonna just pass the torch to somebody else. And Guillermo del Toro was the one that directed the second one, and I guess they scrapped the idea, so that was never again to happen.
Wow.
But now, so check this out. This is where
21
everything.
years later.
Yeah. So this is
Wow.
where everything kind of is starting to link up, and this is my theory. Again, I'm just going off by what I've been reading and what people have been saying here and there that are fans of this stuff. So now we move on to the current date where we're here now, in October 4th. So now they're making a Morbius film starring Jared Leto, right? Like we were talking about earlier off air. I gave you a little bit of detail on
The
that.
Suicide Squad Joker.
Yes. So they're making a standalone movie of Jared Leto. So, like I was saying, in 1998, when they made Blade, they were supposed to have Morbius as a villain. So here's my theory, and this is where I kind of geek out and I get kind of interested on what's going on. There's been a potential leak, and this leak comes from the great Tyrese. You know who Tyrese is, right?
Tyrese Gibson.
Yeah, Tyrese Gibson. What was that song? A little side note. What was that song? He had that song back in the days. Hot Girls or something like that.
I don't know.
No?
I used to listen because I'd watch TRL and he'd be on TRL. His songs every now and then. Carson Daly.
Yeah, he had that album called 10,000 Watts.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was mostly my girls that would listen to that. And so, I would just let her bring the CD in the car and just pretend like, oh, yeah, just play whatever you want, and just never turn it off.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I could have sworn he had an album called 10,000 Watts. I don't know, people. Correct me. Like I said, if I got it wrong.
Even if you're right or wrong, I'm never going to admit it. Because just to admit it, it would be like, yeah, you're a fan.
So, okay. So back to their main point. So, okay, this is where it gets interesting, right?
All right.
He was talking to Charlemagne the God from the Breakfast Club. He does Brilliant Idiots podcast. Really well-known dude out there, and he's actually a big comic book fan. He likes all the movies, like all the Marvel movies that have been coming out and all that. So Tyrese,
does he get Donkey of the Day for that?
He should have given himself that for spilling the beans on that. But he actually spoke to Tyrese, or they talked. Something was said between them, and Tyrese told him that he had already a contract to do movies for the new Morbius film that was going to cross into the MCU, which is Disney's territory. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting because, again, if this Morbius film is going to be entailed into the new Blade that they're making or that Disney's making, this would make the total perfect sense. And the only reason why I say that is because they're probably not just thinking about Spider-Man as just being the only way for them to work together with, but they're probably thinking, why not go for the big picture? And we can both own these different characters, but how about we just, we share the sandbox and we have these characters coexist with each other, and we can like kind of go half and half on these films. So I feel like that's where this is steering to, because there's so much, like, just when I guess Tyrese had supposedly told Charlemagne that he had he already pretty much signed up for the Morbius film, but in that contract it specifically stated that there was going to be appearances in the MCU, which is Disney's territory. So that's where it kind of gets like interesting, because now they're looking at it from far more than just Spider-Man alone. They're looking at it probably from, Morbius actually meeting up with Blade, and then Blade meeting up with Spider-Man, because in the comics they do run into each other in the comics. So that right there is going to blow people away if that is the case. But it's just crazy to think that these were all ideas back in 1998, and if these do come true now in 2019, 2020, whatever, it's, for me as a fan, dude, I'm all for it. And I think it's cool if they're really going that route, because that would really truly be like a huge gift to the fans, all over the world. So I think it's really interesting. Like, if Tyrese really spilled the beans on that, man, I mean, I don't know if they're gonna, pull the plug from him even being on that film anymore, because they're really secretive about their stuff. They don't really like to tell their own actors, like, this is what's gonna happen in the movie, this is your role, yada yada yada. They like to keep everything under wraps, because they do not like anything. So it's kind of a surprise why he would just tell Charlemagne, yeah, this is what's going on and this is what's going to happen, yada yada
Do
yada.
you think
So
that he could be doing that just to sow disinformation? Throw disinformation out there to kind of make you think you're going in a direction, but
maybe.
really you're like,
No, that's a good
ah.
point. And that's also some of the stuff that I've been reading because I was reading the comments and they're like, well, who knows if maybe he's just trying to throw us off, a different direction to really just make us think that this is where it's really going to go. But who knows, man?
Normally
At
they
this
have
point,
NDAs for that type of stuff, right? I
yeah, I'm
mean,
sure.
you can't
Yeah,
normally talk about that without fear of breaching contract and then paying millions of dollars as a fine.
yeah. It's really crazy though. Excuse me. It's interesting to think about because they're probably, like I said, yeah, you're right. They probably do have something in the contract stating if you share this information with anybody else, you're pretty much cut off. So
Yeah.
who knows at this point, man? I mean, it's just interesting to me to really think that all this is gonna be kind of connecting in some sort of fashion. It's like I said that they're going from having it where Spider-Man's not only a two film deal, it actually moved to three. So some progress is good, better than no progress, I
Yeah.
say. But right now, the future just holds so many questions just on where they're going with this. But I really think they're gonna try to work together so it could work in
This
both of their advantages. Because they're mega, dude. They got stuff lined up for years, bro. So it's just a
dude,
matter of how we're gonna separate this.
that collaboration, that sort of reminds me of like, or it makes me think of, it'd be like similar to Bad Boy Records in its prime working with Death Row in its prime. So all of a sudden you're seeing a song with Mace and Corrupt,
Yeah, yeah,
and Daz
yeah.
and Craig Mack and Biggie and Tupac, and they're all just like making all these joints together, and Faith Evans and Biggie and Tupac. Uh,
Awkward. Yeah,
oh,
right.
and it's still all good, baby, baby.
But wait,
Uh,
wasn't there supposed to be the if we're talking on that tip, switching tips now, uh would it wasn't there supposed to be a joint collaboration album, One Nation?
well, One Nation was Tupac's project to get everybody from all over the country to get on the
Oh,
same
okay.
page, like
Okay,
to
okay.
let everybody know, hey, we are doing this as a black community. We are all pooling our energy, our strength, our skill set. We're pooling together to make basically a better nation.
Yeah.
So that was his project to better the black community. But what I want to talk about with like Wesley Snipes, you were talking about him. They were talking about how he was like the first black superhero,
Yeah.
African American superhero, and and it's so funny because I guess with this country we've always had racial kind of stuff, and I remember that was, now that I'm older, that was a big uh, focus on Black Panther,
Mhm.
on the newest black superhero, and
Yeah.
all cast and all that.
Yeah.
But back in the day, like we didn't even think about that. We were
No.
like when went to Blade, we were watching, we were just watching superheroes or villains or vampires fighting. Like I didn't even know it was a comic. I
Yeah.
All I knew is that it was Wesley Snipes. He was BA, and he was just kicking tail and taking names. So
Yeah.
it's crazy that we think of things like that, but I get it. I mean, the climate out there, it's very race centric these days,
Yeah.
it seems like, and those are going to be issues that I'm going to probably continue to push on the tip touch. There's I talk to a lot of people that are of different backgrounds, whether they're American, non-American, black, Hispanic, white, male, female, gay, straight. I mean, it's just because we're all here together in this country, in this world, and we all have different perspectives. So,
Mhm.
and really, and the funniest thing about it is once you start talking to people, you realize we have more in common than we have difference.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't know. I don't want to deviate too far from what I'm talking about with Blade, but with Blade, I remember, they talk about that he was the first mainstream black superhero, and I was like, man, I didn't even look at it that way.
Yeah,
You know,
that's the
and
same thing with me.
he knocked it
Even
out of the park.
yeah, he did, and like you said, man, I went in there just to watch a movie, and then me getting reaction out of that movie was the way it was just presented to me, and just seeing it, and just having my just raw reaction. Like it was a sick movie.
Yeah.
That's all it was. Like that's what it was. And like I said, I still go back to this day and rewatch it every so often, and it still blows me away. Like it's just awesome, man. Like I said, that's just my opinion on it. I don't look at it from like any race, him being the first black mainstream hero, like we were saying, right?
Mhm.
I didn't look at it anyway, but it was just a film at that point. You know what I'm saying? It was just a
Yeah.
movie. So
Yeah. What was the other one they were talking about? James Bond. Um, they having a female play that role.
I don't
I've
know. I
I've
don't think I've
heard
heard
of.
about that.
Yeah, and those are for other times. I've got
Yeah.
to go here. But anyway, I'm glad we got to do this and talk about all this kind of stuff. But we'll continue to talk
Yeah.
about all that kind of crazy stuff.
Yeah. And again, yeah, leave your comments and your thoughts about all this that's going on, what we just touched bases on. What do you guys think? Share this video, like this video, comment, subscribe, all that. We're going to be talking more about this stuff. It's just as we go, we're just going to get different topics as we go along and bring you guys the most current like just topics or whatever,
Yeah,
movies, shows, whatever. We do whatever we want on this show.
for
You got no
sure.
boss.
Yep. And we are getting more subscribers. So thank you guys for subscribing. That's it's cool for us because it lets us know that, okay, we're doing this. We would do this either way, but
Yeah.
to get that extra dose of love, that shot of adrenaline when you open up, it's like, that's cool. So definitely now, just we look forward to the engagement now,
Sure.
the comments, the subscriptions, all that fun stuff. So
Yes.
much love.
All right, man.
All right. We'll catch you on the flip.
All right, man.
All right.